House number 237. In a quiet suburb of Boston, where the streets were almost empty and the houses seemed to be asleep, there stood an old house bearing the number 237. Everyone avoided it, not because it was abandoned, but because those who had lived there never left the way they entered. Some vanished without a trace. Others walked out raving mad, muttering incomprehensible words, and the rest ended up dead under mysterious circumstances. It was as if a curse hung over the place. One cold night, Michael, a young and adventurous writer, decided to spend the night inside the house, determined to uncover the truth behind the stories. He believed all the tales were nothing more than old myths, and with his investigation, he would find a logical explanation for everything. Carrying his camera and a flashlight, he stepped through the front door, which was broken and hanging slightly off its hinges, as if it might collapse at any moment. The moment he crossed the threshold, he felt as if he had entered another world. The air was unnaturally cold, and the scent of mold was suffocating. The walls were cracked, and the furniture was covered in thick layers of dust. But what caught his attention the most were the paintings hanging on the walls. Distorted faces with eyes that seemed to follow him wherever he moved, as if they were watching him. Ignoring the unease creeping up his spine, he began taking notes while exploring the first floor. Nothing seemed particularly strange, except for a faint humming sound, like an electrical current running through the walls, despite the house having no power. As he ascended the creaky wooden staircase to the second floor, he felt a heavy pressure on his chest, as if something was trying to push him back down. He resisted and continued until he reached a long hallway lined with several closed doors. Only one door at the far end was slightly open, as if someone had been waiting for him. When he approached, he noticed the room inside was completely dark, despite the moon shining brightly outside. Slowly, he reached out and pushed the door open, stepping inside cautiously. The room was empty, except for an old bed in the center and curtains that swayed despite the tightly shut windows. As soon as he stepped in, he heard whispering, several voices murmuring at once, speaking in a language he couldn't understand. He tried turning on his flashlight, but it refused to work, as if the batteries had suddenly died. He turned to leave, but something cold gripped his wrist. A hand, strong and unyielding, its touch chilling his bones. There was no one there, and yet he could feel it. He struggled to break free and ran toward the staircase, but the stairs were gone. Instead, the hallway stretched endlessly, and the walls seemed to be closing in on him. The house was swallowing him whole. He ran in a panic, but the rooms repeated like a never-ending loop, trapping him in an inescapable maze. Finally, he tripped and fell to the ground. When he lifted his head, he was back in the same room. The door was shut this time. The whispers grew louder, turning into piercing screams that drilled into his ears. The floor beneath him trembled. Something moved behind him, a cold presence drawing closer. He could feel its breath on his neck, a putrid stench filling the air. Gathering his last ounce of courage, he turned around. No one knows what he saw because Michael never came out of the house. The police later found his camera outside the front door, recording his final moments. The footage showed him screaming for help before collapsing, the screen cracking. But in the last second of the video, a tall, shadowy figure stood behind him, watching in silence, right before the camera went dark. Since that night, no one has dared to approach house number 237. Don't forget to support us by subscribing to the channel and activating the notification bell to stay updated. If you like the content, Hit the like button and encourage us to create more.